Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of August 5th, 2018. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. What an amazing week it is. We have the final of 3 eclipses. We have the end of eclipse season. Now that in and of itself is a big deal. We have been in an extended eclipse season cycle since the middle of last month, and now it is going to be this week with the solar eclipse in the sign of Leo at the very end of the week that we will have our final solar eclipse, and this will bring to a close a month of eclipse season. Now, eclipse season, yes, I like to call it a time when the veil between the worlds are especially thin, a time when we're able to recognize our spiritual lessons a little bit more than we might otherwise be. But it can also be a time that feels particularly sensitive when we feel we're able to recognize those spiritual lessons because our spirit is so on the surface. Our emotions are being provoked that much easier. And I think some people have felt this series of eclipses more than others, but if you are one of the fixed signs, which is Aquarius, which is Leo, which is Scorpio and Taurus, these are the signs that hold a season. They are in the middle of each season. That's why they're called fixed signs. Well, they are the ones who probably found the most recent lunar eclipse particularly challenging. But it is now, as we get to this solar eclipse, which is the easier of the 3 eclipses we've had, well, that is when the energy will really start to feel like it shifts in important ways. This eclipse is happening hand in hand with a retrograde Mercury. It is also speaking with Jupiter, and it is a type of conversation that astrologers call a square. It is a conversation of hope, of over-optimism, and maybe having to look at and heal some of our own fears. As part of the build-up towards this eclipse, at the beginning of the week, the Sun will speak with Jupiter, and closer to the eclipse, Mercury will perfect its connection to Jupiter, and it culminates with this eclipse. For all of us, in at least one area of life, we will have a sense of a fresh start, but it will likely be facilitated by conversation or a sense of communication, mental considerations. It's a very intellectual energy, even though Leo is a fire sign and it can be very passionate. We have that passionate energy I'll talk about in a little bit. But because Mercury is so close, is right there with this solar eclipse, that will be the characteristic of this time. And that tells me that there's a sense of healthy detachment. There's a sense that we're being able to recognize and comprehend and digest the occurrences of our lives on a level of intellect so that we're able to better integrate them into other parts of our lives and other parts of our reality. Now, contrast that with the lunar eclipse that happened recently. That happened hand in hand with Mars. Mars is a very embodied energy. It's a very visceral energy. And even though it happened in the sign of Aquarius, which is very much an air sign, very intellectual a sign, it was ultimately that Mars that was the stronger drive and the stronger characteristic, making for an energy that felt that much more immediate and that much more urgent as well. Now we move forward and we come to where we are now at the end of this week with this powerful solar eclipse. And chances are it's going to feel like synchronicity is operating on high. That has to do with that Mercury being involved. But the thing to remember is because Mercury is retrograde, don't accept, don't consider the answers you get or the opportunities that show up even as the final answer, because chances are we'll be seeing things in a way that has more to do with our hopes than actually has to do with details that we need to recognize. We may actually overlook key details at that. The other part of this energy has to do with promises. I mean, I'm seeing this Jupiter and solar, speaking to this solar eclipse play out in a way that has to do with us over promising others or others over promising us, and having a sense of inflated expectations, whether it's, explicit, whether that was the intention or not. There's a sense of over optimism, a sense of great possibilities. And absolutely, there are great possibilities at all times. However, there are key details that we may be overlooking that we need to acknowledge. Things will become a lot clearer once we get into next week, because next week is when Mercury goes direct, but in particular, it is the week after that when Mercury returns to where he is now, actually towards the end of the month at the full moon that's going to happen 2 weeks after this solar eclipse. Well, that is when we will have our final clarity. That is when we will really know what the opportunities were that transpired at this time, and we will more fully have a complete picture, but more fully have the details, the very important details that we need to make a decision going forward. Now, that doesn't mean just because it's Mercury retrograde, you hide in your house for the whole 3 weeks. You don't have to do that, right? What it does mean is you pace yourself. What it means is it's best to focus on what has already been. And if you do meet new people and you do have new conversations and new email messages and new communications that inspire you, then that's wonderful. Be inspired. But before you fully commit, strive, if you can, to fully understand. Of course, sometimes we don't have a choice. We have to trust our lives. We are in a moment, and the moment asks us to make a decision and to put that decision in writing, as the case may be. And in that case, of course, you have to trust your life and see where it is that it wants to take you. Because in those moments, I think that those moments tend to be very karmic. They tend to be very much about the universe knowing that this actually is something that could be good for us, that could help us to learn and grow spiritually. And in some way, it could be part of the mystery, is moving us towards greater love and greater wisdom, which is what I think is the higher intention of our incarnation, of our being here. Eclipses remind us of this higher intention of our incarnation more than anything. They are one of the most powerful symbols that we have in an astrology chart to move us towards an understanding of what our unique journey towards that higher intention of the incarnation, towards greater love and greater wisdom. Well, what is that going to look like for us? It is the nodes that point the way, and it is eclipses that powerfully align us with where the nodes are right now and align us with our collective intention for this incarnation and our individual part of that collective intention as well. I like to think of eclipses as having a little bit of Uranian energy. So they're a little bit of Uranus in the sense that they can be surprising, in the sense that they can be delightful sometimes. But really, they tend to bring us a new way of looking at things, of considering things, new opportunities, sometimes out of nowhere. Well, this week, we also have Uranus changing directions. So we have this very strong energy in the air of things moving quickly and of things being very karmic. Uranus, early in the week, will stand still in the sky and go retro. As he goes retro, he's, hanging out in this conversation with Saturn all month. They are speaking in supreme harmony all month. This is the closest to exact it's going to get as part of this entire month. So it's important to pay attention to what is happening as you start this week and as Uranus changes directions. It's the change of direction of a planet where the energy starts to be that much more magnified and gets our attention that much more. So pay attention to what's happening, because at least one area of life will hold surprises for you and will ask you to act quickly and act brilliantly to address it. Now, the other value of this energy as well is that, of course, Uranus has just temporarily stepped into the sign of Taurus. Now, as it goes retro, he's slowly going to start making his way back to the sign of Aries, and he will re-enter the sign of Aries in the fall. I'll talk about it every step of the way. But suffice it to say, this is a good time to rewatch the Uranus video that I did on YouTube, or to rewatch your Uranus special that you get in the Superstar Space or on my website. It is ultimately this Uranian energy, this area of life that the universe is striving to help you to live more authentically and to get in touch with your most authentic self and most rewarding self at that. It is where the universe wants you to align with this sense of a higher calling. Well, wherever it is that Uranus has moved into, as it moved into the sign of Taurus, that is where you can expect things to move very, very quickly, and where you can expect yourself to be surprised, to be delighted, whether it's a personal insight or outer event taking place. Ultimately, all of us in at least one area of life are going to find ourselves looking at circumstances that encourage us to change things. Now, ultimately, the greatest change is within. And when a planet goes retrograde, its energies turn inward, and it invites us to consider the inner change required so that our outer reality can reflect what's going on within. If we are desiring change in any area of our lives, ultimately, that outer change, by the time it shows up, by the time our reality and our lives and our lived experience looks different, already within us, the change has already occurred. And that's why it really is the more powerful place to begin. It is more powerful to consider what is happening with your state of spirit and with your state of mind and your state of emotion, if it is that you want to change your physical reality, whatever that may be. So it is with Uranus. As Uranus goes retrograde, it asks us to reflect more deeply, to consider what inner change would look like so that we can transform a particular area of life that he's currently in. And Uranus going retrograde ultimately reminds us that the greatest act of rebellion is being true to ourselves. Listening to yourself, honoring yourself, and trusting yourself and your inner authority is the greatest act of revolution that you can take, because so few people do it. And because when people do it, it changes everything, including the world. And so this is your opportunity as part of your unique journey and as part of our individual journeys to undertake this promise, to undertake this prospect of actually reflecting more deeply within and looking at where inner change needs to line up with whatever it is that we're hoping to manifest in our outer reality. If all of that wasn't enough, Venus changes signs this week as well. Now, this is important for a few reasons. I touched on it last week. Venus is entering the sign of Libra. She will, once it is September, she will enter shadow as part of the Venus retrograde season. I'll talk a lot more about that, I'm sure. Specials are coming up later on towards the end of August, so be on the lookout for that. But this is where Venus enters the sign where she will eventually go into shadow. So Venus isn't just going to be in the sign of Libra for 4 weeks and that's it. But rather, she is going to step into the sign, and then she will be moving in and out of the sign of Libra in the months ahead. See how you feel with Venus in the sign of Libra. Now, if you are an air sign, chances are you are going to find this energy that much easier to deal with, that much easier to integrate, that much easier to celebrate as well. It tends to be a very easy placement. Now, if you are one of the cardinal signs, in particular, if you are a Cancer or a Capricorn, then this energy can be a little bit more challenging. But see, here's the thing. It is Venus that's now in an air sign and eventually will go into a water sign, Scorpio, and be moving back and forth between the two. So everybody is going to have their moments when the energy feels easier, and everybody will have those moments where the energy feels a little bit more challenging. But it is Venus after all, and Venus really is about the enjoyment of life, the pleasures of our 5 senses and enjoying where we are right now. That's what she's ordinarily about. But she's come home to the sign of Libra, and Libra and Venus in Libra is what Socrates called celestial Aphrodite. So there's earthly Aphrodite, that's very Venus in Taurus. Then there's celestial Aphrodite, which has to do with the love of ideas, the higher forms of beauty, and defining what those higher forms of beauty could be. I actually think there's a nice middle there, right? We can actually celebrate and enjoy our 5 senses, and at the same time celebrate and enjoy whatever it is that we consider a more refined beauty. The beauty of ideas, the beauty of thought, the beauty of intellect, right? The beauty of us advancing, of moving forward, of our evolution. These are us moving towards an energy of love, and therefore an energy of beauty, and therefore an energy of Venus. And that is what the celestial Aphrodite represents. So here we are. It is brand new, early in the week. Venus is going to move into the sign of Libra, come home to her other home, the sign of Libra, bringing with it a love of ideas and a love of grace and being gracious and a love of being polite to each other. Venus will very quickly reach out and speak with Mars. So it looks like the early and middle parts of the week are very passionate. I love this energy. I must say it is, if I may say, it is a very sexy energy. It is one that you absolutely can enjoy. Mars right now in the sign of Aquarius, speaking to this Venus newly in the sign of Libra, can be very passionate indeed. And I think a lot of people will be enjoying this. They'll be enjoying meeting new people. That becomes very likely with this, but also connecting and staying connected to the one that you love. Certainly, this energy does speak to a desire to enjoy your life. And so do make sure that you're doing something fun, especially around the middle of the week. But as we move a little bit further, Venus will reach out and speak with Saturn. That is an energy that is very grounded. It is an energy that is much more about a reality check if we need it, or a consideration of the bigger picture. I think of this energy as having to do with understanding love as patient, understanding love as connected to acceptance. However, when it's someone new that you're just meeting and just interacting with, you really don't have to accept anything that you don't want to, right? At the end of the day, people come into our lives for all kinds of reasons and for all kinds of time frames. And just because the time frame is minimal or small doesn't mean that it is any less important or impactful or part of our understanding of ourselves and what it means for our individual journeys towards greater love and greater wisdom. So this is going to be that little bit of a reality check. Like, is this a person you want to get to know better? Are there things here, like complicated things of the world and of reality, that this person has to deal with that has nothing to do with you? Is it that if you are in an established bond, is it that your partner having their own individual journey and doing the things that they need to do, understanding the direction in which they are going in, whether or not it directly involves us? Is there a space where we can bring acceptance? Is there a space where we can bring patience? These are going to be part of the considerations that we will be having in our larger world, and certainly in at least one area of life for each of us. What I love about this week for us, well, look, it's got to be the end of eclipse season. It's been a tough one for a lot of people out there. We're not totally out of the woods, of course, because of all the retrogrades that are still going on, but the eclipses, at least for now, will come to an end and we can celebrate. And I promise you, this final eclipse is not nearly as personal or nearly as dramatic as what was transpiring just 2 short weeks before. The lunar eclipse that took place recently was one that had a heightened drama with it. Not so with the solar eclipse. This solar eclipse is a lot more intellectual. It's a lot more confident. And it's a lot more hopeful as well. And if there's anything the world could need now, it certainly is, and really always has been, hope. Because hope really is a defining characteristic of what it means to be a human being. When we have hope with us and in our hearts, truly it gives us peace. And peace and interacting with the world from a place of peace is from which great things become possible. Well, thank you so much for watching. I'm so grateful for it. Tell me, what are you looking forward to where it comes to this week? What is it that you love most about this week? How was your week last week? I love reading you guys. I love interacting with you guys in the YouTube comments, of course, and also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. I look forward to meeting you there, and as well meeting you in the superstar space. If you want to find out how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you in your sign, log on to astrofabulous.com or nadiyashah.com. Sign up to be one of my superstars. Superstars get expanded exclusive video scopes each and every week, unlimited access to special horoscopes, and so much more in the superstar space. And of course, special horoscopes are on my website right now as well. And as I mentioned, Venus special horoscopes are coming towards the end of August. I hope that you absolutely love them. Also, I have new classes coming up very soon. Before you know it, we're going to be here. The autumn session is right around the corner, and you can log on to nadiyashah.com or synchronicityuniversity.com and sign up for the next session. Now, this next session, all the classes are based on some of the most popular questions asked of any astrologer. So whether it is your chart that you're looking at, whether it is that you read other people's chart, these can be very valuable classes for you indeed. And so one of the classes is on luck and fortune in the astrology chart, signatures of long-term love in astrology. We are looking at money and career in astrology, and life purpose in the astrology chart. These live online classes, they're always so much fun. They're always such a joy, live and interactive, and you ask your questions in real time. Each class is over 2 hours long. If you can't join us live, that's okay. Everybody who signs up gets the replay, the video replay, to learn from infinitely. I hope you absolutely love those classes. And I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. I know that it has not necessarily been the easiest. Some people have found it not too hard, and that's amazing. Some people have not found it challenging, and that's awesome. When you can move through life and feel like it is on your side, well, I like to see what's happening in your individual chart, that's for sure. But I do think that there have been a lot of people, especially with the recent lunar eclipse, that found it to be particularly intense. Mars continues to be retrograde now, so there is a measure of intensity in the air still with us. When Mars is retrograde, or really when any planet is retrograde, it is essentially as close to the Earth as it generally is going to get. And so as the planets and the Earth, it's an illusion that we think the planets are moving around us, of course, and that's the perception that we have. We're moving around the sun, all of us together, all the planets, including Earth. But when you look at the planets from the perception of Earth, and when it is that a planet is retrograde, it tends to be that that planet is closer to the Earth than it would be otherwise. And when a planet is closer, when a planet is retrograde, its energies become that much more meaningful for us. That's why Mars right now, all month, I know I saw it all of July, we'll see it in August as well, has been moving through the night sky. As soon as the sun goes down, we start seeing Mars rising, and all night is moving across the sky. It's been absolutely beautiful to watch. But this is speaking volumes to us. It is helping us to understand what it means to have power, and how are we going to define a healthy sense of power, and how are we going to evolve it. And when you have planets going retrograde, ultimately the answers are found within, and ultimately the answers are going to be uniquely our own. What does it mean for you to be and to feel genuinely empowered right where you are? This is a powerful time. We are still between eclipses until the very end of the week. It is a powerful time to find your unique answer, and then to honor that part of you that knows that you are strong, you are courageous, and you can be sure about who you are. Well, thank you again. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.